Yesterday, we didn't have a class in Chumash because of all sorts of reasons beyond my control, so to speak, excuses. And so today we'll try to make up for it. So today we're finishing the end of this week's Torah portion, Parshas Vayera, talking about how God appeared to Abraham after he was circumcised. And then God appeared with three angels. One of the angels was to cure Abraham because he had just finished circumcising himself. The other angel was to tell Sarah that she was going to give birth. And we'll see that in this week's Torah portion shortly, she does give birth to Yitzchak, her son. Abraham already had the son Yishmael, but that was from Hagar. We'll learn about that. And Sarah had already kicked her out of the house, and then God told her to go back, so she went back. And then we had the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, that Abraham prayed to save Sodom and Gomorrah, and he didn't succeed, and God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot escapes from Sodom and Gomorrah with his two daughters, and he has relations with his two daughters, and he gives birth to Ammon and Moab, which Moab is going to be eventually the source of Ruth HaMoabit, and from her comes King David, Mashiach. And also Ammon and Moab, those are going to be the two of the three nations that God will give to the Jews in the days of the Mashiach. He promised Abraham 7, and it's passed over almost 4,000 years, and he promised Abraham 10 lands, and he only gave him 7. He gave Abraham 7 of the 10 that he promised him. And the 3 are waiting for Mashiach. And 2 of them are going to be Ammon and Moab, those 2 sons that came from Lot. Okay, so anyway, now, next what happens is that Sarah is taken into imprisonment another time. She's kidnapped by Avimelech. Kidnapped again. And there's all sorts of plagues in the house of Avimelech and everything, and he lets her go. And so it says, so Vayitpalel Avram El Elohim, and God healed Avimelech and his wife and all of his children and his handmaidens and such like that, because it said that all their apertures were closed, especially those of procreation. They're all closed. So God prayed for this Avimelech who had kidnapped Sarah, basically through no fault of his own. And from here we have the famous sentence that he said, Abraham, why did you lie to me? And he said, because I saw there was no fear of God here, and I was sure they would kill me in order to get my wife. Okay, so it said, Abraham prayed, and that all of their apertures would be opened up, because God closed the womb of Avimelech because of Sarah. After that, Hashem pakaded Sarah. After that, we're going to have to go a little bit quickly, so hold on. So after that, Sarah gets pregnant, like God said, and God did as he told her. God said, why? This is right next to Abraham praying for Avimelech that his family should become fertile, that their wombs should be opened up. But since this tells you that anyone who requests mercy on someone else, and he himself needs that thing, right? You pray, you yourself need money, and you pray for somebody else that also needs money, so you get answered first. He gets answered first. We see that because it says that Abraham prayed for Avimelech, and then all of a sudden, Avimelech and his wife, and suddenly God answers Sarah and makes her pregnant. So it says pakad, like he said, and this is getting pregnant, and like he said, diber, and he also kasher diber, that's that she actually gave birth. So Sarah became pregnant. She gave birth to Abraham a son in his old age, just as he said. What does it mean as his old age? It says that his face appeared just like his father's did, Yitzchak. Avram called the name of his son that he was born Yitzchak, named Yitzchak. And it says that the reason is, before we learn, Yitzchak was because there was 10 tests. Tzaddik, that his mother was 90 years old when he was born. He was circumcised, Chet is 8, when he was 8 days old. And Kuv, his father, was 100 years old when he was born. So that's Yitzchak is all hinted at. So Avram circumcised Yitzchak when he was 8 days old. The first person to be circumcised at the age of 8 was Yitzchak, just like God. Of course, his father had been circumcised the year before, circumcised himself. He says that's why when the custom is, when you bring the child, an 8-day-old child in to be circumcised in the room, to be circumcised, so we say, Baruch haba, blessed is the one who is coming, because haba is the numerical value of 8. 5, 2, 1, 8. 8 gematria. Hainu Baruch HaGomel, blessed is the one that has finished 8 days. Okay, Avram was 100 years old when he gave birth to Yitzchak, his son. Sarah said, Tzchokas ali Elokim, God is making me happy. Anyone who hears this Yitzchakli will be happy. Anyone who hears me will be happy and rejoice. It says a lot. Why will they rejoice? What do they care what happens to the Jews? It says there was a lot of barren women that became pregnant and gave birth with her. There were a lot of sick people that were healed on that day. A lot of prayers were answered with her. There was a lot of happiness and joy in the world. So it says, that's Rashi says. Sofrono, Rabbi Avadia of Sofrono says, what does it mean, schok, God has made me laughter? Even though there's a lot of pain for the child, but God gave joy in everybody's heart, in my heart. Therefore, anyone who hears will be happy to me, will be happy for me, and they'll be happy for my sake, and they won't be worried. And that's a very strange thing, that nowadays when you bring a child in to be circumcised, is everybody's happy. The child is crying, screaming, and everybody's happy, and they say, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. So because from the first one to be sacrificed is Yitzchak, that circumcision is a happy thing. It says also that Sasal al imotecha kamutzi shalorav, Sasal, that's the brila. It says that's the bris milah, it's happiness, joy. And he said, who would think that Abraham, that Sarah would give nursing, that would nurse Sarah because I gave birth to a child in my old age. It says, Haniku banim l'Sarah, that Sarah nursed children. She didn't nurse children, she just nursed one child. What does it mean, children? What does it mean? And the day of this great feast of some people say, Rashi says, we're going to see where the feast is 1 second. It says, Mishte Gadol B'yom Higomel es Yitzchak. Yes, he says Higomel, this was after 2 years old. Higomel means he stopped nursing from his mother. Some people say Higomel was Chag Mal, the holiday when he was circumcised. In any case, it says it was a big meal. All the great people of the generation were there. There was Shem, Aver, Avimelech, everyone was coming to this feast. Here he says that what does it mean that Sarah nursed children? So it said that on that day of this feast, when it was, all of the women brought their children to Sarah that she should nurse them. Why? Because everyone was saying that this whole thing is it's a big bluff, that Sarah did not give birth to the child. She's too old, 90 years old, giving birth. It must be that she found the child in the marketplace, and she's calling him Yitzchak. She's making this whole thing up. She found some abandoned child, and it happened to be that, right, God made a miracle, who knows what, and somebody lost their child or died, and the child. So Sarah said, "Oh, it's not my child. Watch this." Now all the women brought their children, and she nursed them. She was 90 years old. She still had milk in her breasts. The child grew up, and Avram made a big meal, like we said, on that day. And Sarah saw that Ben Hagar Mitzrit. Sarah saw that. One second. I don't know if I missed this here. Here it is. Okay. The Avram son, the son was born to Avram. But Vatelet Sarah LaAvram, to Avram a son. So in other words, Sarah, she was the one who gave birth to Avram to a son. But what I mean, there was already Hagar. She already had a child. So the Or HaChaim says no, like this. Listen to this. It says Avraham was the father of Yitzchak. This hints at that Avraham he gave birth to Yitzchak, and Avraham did not give birth to Yishmael, because the name of Yishmael, we never say Yishmael ben Avraham. It never says it in the Torah. Only in Yitzchak is called. He's the offspring of Avraham. We find that it does say that Hagar gave a birth to a son to Avram. This is before Avram was circumcised. There his name was Avram, but after that, Avram was circumcised, and his name became Avraham. So Avram is never mentioned again. So that's what it means, that Yishmael has no connection to Avraham. Yishmael only has a connection to Avram, and Avram is never mentioned. This name Avram is never mentioned again. That's why it says in that anyone who calls Avraham by the name of Avram is transgressing a positive commandment. The reason is because so you shouldn't think in any way that Yishmael is connected to the Jewish people or to Avraham, because he's not. He's connected only to Avram, and Avram doesn't exist anymore. Okay, that's what he says. So Sarah sees that Yishmael is doing some sort of not proper thing with her son. She's playing around. I show you, mitzachek. He's playing around with Yitzchak. What does it mean? Either he's convincing him to worship idols, like it says, Yechumu Litzachek. Others say it's Gilui Arayos, that he was violating him, trying to sexually, like it says about Kamodetema Litzachek bi, like the wife of Potiphar said about Yosef, that Yosef is coming to Litzachek bi. Some people say Litzachek means murder, like it says Yekumu Narim v'Yisachku lefanenu. It says in Shmuel, in Samuel, the book of Samuel. So Yitzchak was being attacked by Yishmael, or for the sake of idolatry, or for the sake of licentious or something sexual, or you wanted to kill him. Those are the three sins that Jew is supposed to give his life for. So what happened? Sarah said to Avram, evict this woman and her son, because he's not going to have any portion with me. He's not going to have any portion with you. He's not part of the Jewish people. He's not part of Avram. He is out of the family. This was very, very difficult in the eyes of Abraham. Alodot Bano, because it was his son, Yishmael. Why was it bad? Because not so much that he had to kick him out, because he found out that his son, Yishmael, that he really had a lot of trust in, he was worshiping idols and was a murderer and was a decadent person. That's why he felt bad. According to some opinions, this is one of the tests. This is one of the 10 tests that Abraham had. So God said to Abraham, don't be worried about what Sarah said. Whatever Sarah said, Shema b'kolo. Whatever Sarah says, you have to listen to her. So we learn from this, it says that Avram was secondary to Sarah as far as prophecy. Sarah had a higher level of prophecy than Abraham did. And also, you should know that this Hagar, I'm going to make her into a big nation. It'll be a big nation. Don't worry about it. Right? You're evicting them. They won't be part of you anymore, but they'll be a big nation in their own right. Avram woke up in the morning, he took bread, he gave it to Hagar, and he sent them into the desert. And with the water, they went into the desert, and the water finished, and she put the child, Yishmael, he was already, 15 years old, however old he was, whenever they made this feast. And she put underneath one of the trees because she couldn't stand to see that he was going to die. I don't want to see my child die. And that's pretty cruel. I mean, the child is dying, so she's worried about what she feels. Hold him in your arms, comfort him, and last minute, I don't want this ugly sight, seeing my son. Anyway, God heard the child, and he called an angel. There came an angel called to Hagar and said, what are you doing? Don't be afraid. God heard the child, Ba'asher Husham, as he is over there. And says, what does it mean, Ba'asher Husham? Rashi explains that in the future he's going to be a big sin, and his children are going to be really evil, and they're going to kill a lot of Jews. But Ba'asher Husham, God just listens how it is right now. So it says, right now, what is he? He said, right now, he's a tzaddik, right? He didn't do anything wrong. So therefore, it said, I'm judging, God says, I'm going to judge him how he is right now, and that's it. In the future, he's going to make a lot of trouble for the Jews, especially when they're coming back from the exile. Anyway, God says, don't worry about it. I'm going to let him live. Take the child, hold his hand, because I'm going to make him into a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and she filled up her jug or whatever, and she gave the child. And God was with the child, and he lived in the desert, and he became a hunter with a bow and arrow. And they lived in Midbar Paran. Good. And now let's skip this part. Avimelech comes and he makes a covenant with Abraham. And just one little thing I want to say, and it says they made a bris with Beersheba. He made a covenant with Abraham in this Beersheba, and it says Vayita Eshel beBeersheba, that Abraham planted a Eshel in Beersheba. Now, what is an Eshel? Two different opinions. Eshel, Rav has one opinion and Shmuel has another opinion. One of them says that it was a garden with all sorts of trees. Lavi mimenu perot, to bring fruits to the guests, because we said that Abraham made this outdoor hotel. One says it was a hotel for guests, and there was all sorts of fruits there. And we find Natia Ba'olim, it says Vayita, that he planted. Planted can mean that he planted trees. Vayita also can mean that he spread out. No teshamayim, he spread out. So he said he spread out a big tent. Vayita ole aftos. Okay. So one person says it's a big orchard that he planted. Another one says it's a hotel. In any case, it says, what did he do in this hotel or this orchard? He took in a lot of guests. Vayikra Sham, and he called over there. We learned this in the Sikha in the morning. He called over there the name of God, El Olam, God world. And Chassidut, it explains, because it doesn't explain in the Torah exactly what Abraham believed. It explains that Abraham told everybody that the world is not a separate entity from God. The world is Kel Olam, God and the world are one. The world in truth does not really exist. God is creating it every second miraculously from nothing. So all there really is the creator. But the reason God is creating the world, because he wants the world to be here. The world is tremendously important, infinitely more important than we can imagine. God's creating it all the time. So that's what Abraham said. The world is very important and God is creating it. If you want to do, you have to do with the world this important, wonderful world, what God wants. That was his message. As it says, Sifro, it says, Vayikra, what do you mean? He called out and he let everyone know that God, Hu Elokei Azman, that he rules over time, and this is against the apikorsim, the atheists, that they say that no, that the world, it just was created. If it was created a long time ago, and it just sort of coasts on. But they said no, God creates everything constantly. We say Vayikra, that he called over the Rashi, he called by means of this Eshel, by means of this hotel that he made. He called the name of God. After they ate and drank, he told everybody, bless the one whose food you just ate from. And everybody said, well, thanks to Abraham. He said, no, you think that I gave you the food. You ate the food from the king of the universe. That's who you ate from. Okay. And it happened after these things that God tested Abraham. This is the last test. And he said, Avram said, Hineni, I'm ready. And God said like this, take your son, your firstborn, your son, your special one that you love, Yitzchak. Why did he have to say all these things? Just say, take Yitzchak. He said, take your son. Abraham said, I have two sons. Rashi, I have two sons. Yishmael is also a son. He said, the special one. He said, listen, both of them are special to their mother. Yishmael is special to Hagar, and Yitzchak is special to Sarah. He said, the one that you love. Avram said, I love both of them. So finally he said, Yitzchak. Why didn't God just say immediately take Yitzchak? Why? Not to confuse him immediately. To Zuz Dato, because maybe he would go crazy. And also in order that he should value the commandment and to give him a reward on each and every word that he said. He said, where should you take your son? Take him to Eretz Moriah, and bring him over there for a sacrifice on one of the mountains that I say to you. So it says, what is this Eretz Moriah? It's Yerushalayim. It's the place where the Beis it's the place where the Beis Hamikdash is going to be. Excuse me. It's a place where the Holy Temple is going to be, where the altar is going to be. The altar is in the same place where Abraham offered up Yitzchak. It's also in the same place where Noah made sacrifices. It's the same place where Adam was created from that. That's what the Rambam says. And also it says to build a holy temple, Bahara Moriah. Now, of course, Abraham had never been to this place before, so he didn't know exactly where it was. In fact, God drew it out 3 days and take him over there. And then some people say it's on Moriah because of the more is one of the incense, because of this incense that was offered there. Some people say because of the sacrifices, some people because of the incense. God said, sacrifice Yitzchak. He didn't say kill him. He just said, bring him there for a sacrifice. So God said, listen, when God is going to tell him eventually, don't kill him. So God could say, listen, I never told you to kill him. I told you to bring him as a sacrifice. Abraham did not understand this, though. Abraham understood a sacrifice you kill. What do you mean? You bring the sacrifice and you offer it up. On one of the mountains, it says, what are the mountains? He didn't tell Abraham which mountain it was. He said, God, he confuses the tzaddikim, and afterwards he reveals to them everything, tzaddikim. Avram woke up early in the morning, and he saddled his own donkey. It says he woke up in the morning. This shows that he did it for the mitzvah. In the Tanya, it says that this shows that he was happy, and the happiness that he did was the main thing. When Yitzchak saw this happiness, then he knew that his father was normal, and so he chopped wood, and he started off on the place where God told him to go. On the third day, Avram looked up his eyes, and he saw the place far away. How did he know? Why did he take so long? So people wouldn't say, oh, just in the passion of the moment, as Abraham did what God said. He took him a long time, gave him time to reconsider, and because people might say if you did it quickly, then maybe Abraham wouldn't have done it. He would have thought about it. So God gave him time to think. How did Abraham know the place? It says he saw there was a cloud hanging over this mountain, especially it was. El Hamakom says Balaturim. El Hamakom is the gematria, the numerical value of the letters. Zeh Yerushalayim. This is Jerusalem. Avram said to the boys that were with him, it says he took his two boys with him, Shnei Narim, who were the two boys, Yishmael and Eliezer, his son Yishmael and Eliezer, but he left them behind. He was there alone. And the third day, Avram saw the place, and he told the sons, the two boys, Yishmael and Eliezer, to wait back with the donkey. And he said, and we'll go and we'll bow down and we'll come back to you. Avram took the wood, and he took Yitzchak, and he took Yitzchak, and he took in his hand the fire, and the ma'achelet means the knife, and they all went together. But the fire was in a box, or it was however the fire was. Nevertheless, they went together. What does it mean they went together? Avram, that he knew that he was going to sacrifice his son, he was going to kill him. He went with great joy. And Yitzchak was also in great joy, but he didn't know where he was going. He didn't think he was going to be be killed. Yitzchak said to Avram, my father, and he said, it's here to his father. And what did he say? Avi, my father. And he said, he didn't even, here I am, my son. He said, here's the fire and the wood. Where is the sheep? Okay, so this, at first glance, this whole thing is unnecessary. Yitzchak says to Abraham, his father, and he said, what did he say to his father? Avi, my father. That's all he said. He said, my father. And Abraham answered, yes, here I am, my son. Of course, what type of a conversation is that? I mean, they're walking together, and he says, my father. And he says, yes, here I am, my son. So the Kli Yakar says like this, that Yitzchak, he didn't really understand what was going on. Yitzchak didn't say anything yet, but Yitzchak called him father. He said, my father. What happened? Because Yitzchak started to realize that his father was going to take him and kill him. And he thought that maybe his father has suddenly become cruel. Fathers have mercy on their children. He didn't know that God wanted Abraham to do it. He thought maybe just one day Abraham just went crazy. He already had been through 9 tests. He was an old man. Abraham at the time was 137 years old. So therefore now he just said one word to him. Yitzchak said, my father. He said to Abraham, my father? This is to test him if he'll answer back. And that Abraham would recognize that, yes, I'm still your father. Or maybe I'm not your father anymore. I'm just taking you up. Shut up, kid. Don't bother me. Right? No, that's what Yitzchak wanted to know. If his father suddenly became cruel, when his father said, here I am, my son. So this told him that his father still loved him. Therefore, he knew that, and he said, if so, then where is the sheep? We're going to make a sacrifice. And he said, God will show you the sheep. He said, where's the sheep? And he said, God will show you the sheep. Oh, so he knew that his father still believed in God, and he knew that this whole thing must come from God. So therefore, he went along peacefully and quietly. They came to the place where they were supposed to be. They built the altar. They put the wood together. He tied up Yitzchak. That's the Akedah. He tied up Yitzchak. He put him on the altar, on the wood. Now he's going to kill him and light the fire and burn him up. Avram stuck for his hand, stretched out his hand. He took the knife to slaughter his son. Suddenly there called an angel from heaven and said, Avram, Avram. And he said, here I am. He said, don't stick your hand out over the child and don't do anything to him. Maybe you might, Rashi says, maybe you might think to make a little wound in him or something. No. Now I know that you fear God. You don't just love God. And you have not withheld your own son from him. Avram lifted up his eyes and he saw that there was a ayal, a ram that was gathered, caught in the bushes by his horns. He took it and he sacrificed this ram in the place of his son. This is really a knockout over here. We have, let's see, where is this? Avram saw Banav, his future generations that'll come after, that they're caught by their horns in the bushes. What does it mean? That they're caught in the sins that they're going to do. So therefore, what do? God made two horns, shofars. And when you sound them in front of me, then I'll remember the Akedah of Yitzchak, and I will remember the Jews for good. The second one is going to be the shofar gadol. It says by the Mashiach. And one shofar was like the shofar of Mount Sinai, and the other shofar was, what is the shofar? Just like the shofar, you put air into one end and it comes out the other. Also, your children, even if they have a lot of opposition, a lot of sins, I'll put them in one side and I won't listen to them. Therefore, Moshe said to the Jewish people, the shofar is going to be the best defense that you've got. Sound the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, and I'll remember this. Avram called the name of the place Hashem Yireh, which that's the name of the Asher Yeomer Hashem, that everyone will say, on this mountain of God, God appeared. And like they say, this mountain, what do you mean today? Means the day that's going to be. Like it says, Hayom hazeh b'kol makom. All the generations they're going to remember this story on this day until the day that it says the Mashiach will stand on the Mount of Zeisim. Mishakar says Hashem saw this and he'll forgive the Jewish people every year and he'll save them from any bad things. Rosh Hashanah, like it says, Hayom hazeh, all the generations that are coming, God saw the ashes of Yitzchak on the altar. In other words, of course, Yitzchak was not burned, but God treats Abraham's good deeds as though they're all done. Same thing as though they're done, even if he doesn't do them. Abraham did not sacrifice his son, but nevertheless, God treats it as though he did sacrifice him. God sees the ashes. The same thing, the Jews, even if they don't do good deeds, but potentially they can, so God treats the Jews' good deeds as though they actually did them. Okay, an angel appeared to Abraham afterwards, and he said, God said, I'm going to bless you. You're going to have a lot of children, like the stars of the heavens, and like the sand on the sea, the sand on the sea. And your children will inherit the gates, the lands of their enemies. So the more enemies we have, the better, because we're going to take over the land of our enemies, and we'll be blessed, all of the nations of the world, through you, because you listened to what I said. And Abraham went back to his boys. Yelchu yachdav. They went together. What do you mean they went together? It says 3 times they went together. Yitzchak and Avram went together. When they were going, Avram knew, Yitzchak didn't know. And so, nevertheless, Yitzchak went with the same happiness. That says later also that they went together even when Yitzchak did know, but still he maintained the same happiness. And after they finished the whole story, they came back together. What does it mean? They came back together as though they hadn't done anything. As though they just did what God wanted, that's all. All right, let's stop here. Maybe we can do a little bit more.